I will never portray or allow Teen Mania to be portrayed in a negative light, past, present, or future, which I have definitely violated.
Shiny Happy People Season 2 continued. Now, technically, this is part 4, but it's the first part of episode 2 that we're going into, and those two brought some levity that was much needed. This was a really hard one, and they have some amazing deep dives from a personal experience on their page, which I'm going to tag if you want to go look at that, if you want to know a little more. Last I left you, we were about to start talking about the Honor Academy. Now, I don't want to call this free labor because the fact of the matter was they were paying to be there. And when you went to Honor Academy, you had to take a pledge, which is part of what was said in the first clip, as well as getting a ring.
Honor Academy, a one-year internship for committed young adults who are driven to find their purpose and make a difference with their lives.
Being an intern was a very coveted position in covetousness, but you really wanted to do that. And to be a part of that, you had to go through Honor Academy. It was this whole thing where they're really committed to wearing these young people down so that they can go into the world and make themselves part of everything that they believe controls society. This is very close to the Seven Mountains Mandate. If you don't know what that is, Google it. But it is the idea that if you take over these 7 facets of society, you take over society itself. They take all these kids out to this place, and the relationships they mention are very intense, which they would be considering what they're going through. They're very young. These are the only people that they are allowed to have contact. They're being told to be blindly obedient, treated terribly. It's going to create an emotional space that is hard to imagine unless you've actually experienced something like that. From the minute they got there, they participated in a purge, which basically stripped them of everything that made them them.
When we first got there, we have to purge the outside world. Those were the nights where you got the big bonfire and people are throwing their CDs into the fire.
You brought Twilight in with you? That was getting thrown out as soon as you arrived.
They were also taught to lie to their parents about what was really going on because they just wouldn't understand. They were also later instructed to lie to customs agents and a whole lot of stuff. So we're teaching them lying and covetousness. Okay.
Ron very much emphasized that your parents will not understand this. They're not going to understand your passion. God is the one you have to truly...
Programs, once they start getting, Ron Luce is a figurehead, but the minute he doesn't have to do most of it, he doesn't do most of it. And this guy, Dave Haas, comes in, and he's the one that you will mostly see in some of the videos yelling at the kids, running these programs, being very harsh with them. He was like his little right-hand man. Their morning routines and things that these were based around were very militaristic because at the end of the day, they were trying to build an army, and I'm gonna say it again, if he needed an army, he can snap and make one. Doesn't need you to do that for him. That seems like a personal ego thing, right? But the way they treated these kids, they would wake them up at 4 in the morning, and that's when all of this starts going. I mean, the psychological pressure is unreal. Not to mention the physical pressure, the spiritual pressure. I mean, there's just so much pressure.
We would do jumping jacks. We would work out until we threw up.
What they would say when we were doing our morning exercises was, you beat your body and you make it your slave.
How many got to beat your body a little bit? Make it your slave.
As a black man, and you have a campus full of white people coming up to me going, beat your body, make it your slave, not appropriate.
This episode got really into how terribly people were treated, especially anyone who was different, but everybody just on a blanket was treated terribly unless they were in charge, right? But they do all this in hopes that they're going to get drafted, that's what it's called, into the job that they want. Now, there's several jobs. You can be in, like, the worship team, and they're going to go and do skits and stuff like that, or you could be an executive assistant. But a lot of them were, like, groundskeeping, kitchen, that sort of stuff. So these kids are going there, they've convinced their parents to pay the tuition, and they're so excited, and they end up on grounds crew when really they wanted to go minister, like they were told that that's what they were there to do. But it's just like a lot of these other places, because they'll call you in and say, well, I've had a message come to me, and this is what's been decided. That is not true at all. It is a bunch of dudes sitting around wondering who they like the most and where they want to put you, or maybe you did something that made them mad like 6 months ago, so now you're on janitorial crew. You know, that whole thing. It's not, there's not some divine thing going on. They just pick who they like.
There was definitely a hierarchy at play.
The international operations, that's where I wanted to be. That's where trips were planned. That's where global work was worked out. And there was one place I didn't want to be. That was the one in the whole ministry. I was like, you want me to mow lawns, dig holes? You want me to, I'll do, like, just don't put me on this one task.
With them, their father was very, very involved in this movement. He's like, remember the singing guy who had a little bit of a mullet, which has an amazing story later on. We'll get into that. But he was heavily involved with this, so it's not outside of the realm of possibility to believe that they knew that this was what this young man wanted to do, and for one reason or another, lots of reasons, most of them not good, they decided, and you see this so often, and you even see, not even just in this environment, you see a lot of adults do this to young people, where they're like, oh, that's what you want? Well, take what you get. It's okay to help people get where they want to be, but a lot of these leaders will hear that someone wants something, and because of their pride, ego, all this stuff, they think they know better than everyone, including the stuff they pretend to believe in. And what is that? Like, that could be called pride. So we got lying, covetousness, and pride.
The one place I didn't want to be, I was a teenage telemarketer for Jesus.
But see, they're trained from day one not to ask any questions. And if they did, things would become even worse for them.
Don't you know that when you offer yourselves to someone to obey him as slaves, you're a slave to the one whom you obey. Whether you're a slave to sin, which leads to death, or to obedience, which leads to righteousness.
Anyone who asks you for blind obedience is planning to do something that they don't want you to question, and that is a huge red flag. And you got to remember, that seems like a no-brainer to people who are almost 40, but these kids were kids. You know what I mean? It's just, the whole thing is so nefarious. That's it for this one. Next one, we are going into how they made me agree with Ben Affleck. When he's the moral fiber in the room, we have problems. Okay? And purity culture. I'll see you then, and I hope you have a good day.